Hmm. Hi, my name is Tanya, and I research theoretical physics. Now, in physics, thanks to some of my help, you don't hear about me, but physics is the study of the reality of me and of you. Now, what I keep hearing when I listen to a physicist speak, they reiterate knowledge that they've learned, but nobody really has any um, complete understanding of the universe, not even myself, and trust that I have a lot of understanding of the universe. The universe, Thomas Hertog calls it the multiverse. And recently, science has come to know, with my help, um, that the universe evolved from something. So that would be like you would have a child, right? When you give birth to a child, that child is a part of you. That DNA is a part of you. The universe is energy. It began as energy. So if the universe begins as energy, I need to cover that up so I can't even see it. If the universe begins as energy, it evolves into matter. Matter is a physical reality that experiences other physical realities. So, to simplify, if I know that my cat was a human, and if I know that I was a dog, then we are energy taking new form. And it's why would we be a cat? Why would we be a dog? Why would be all of these different things? Have you ever been scratched by a cat? Probably, if you have a cat. Have you ever been growled at by a dog? Well, if you have a dog and you try to take something away from them that they want, they're going to get irritable with you. So, and then my cat always wants me. This is Jake. Hi, Jake. Jake always wants attention. So, this tells me something about Jake and my past life. So, this tells me a lot about his personality, that he was very needy. So, in this life, I had to have been needy also. So, in this life, he's a cat in order for me to give him the attention that I didn't give him before. Now, I know this based on the words that I say to him. The words you speak to someone are telling you a story, a prophecy to your own reality. Now, I had this ability to, some people would call it being a psychic or a clairvoyant or whatever. I'm someone who had asked for something and I evolved into that energy that could understand what I asked for. I wanted to know myself. You know that expression in the Bible, know thyself. So I wanted to know myself. I wanted to know what kind of person I was, why I was the way I was, why my life was the way it was. So in my past life, most recent, well, I've been scientists, famous artists, famous philosophers. Now, those things might sound far-fetched to someone. Like they might not believe that. They might say, why would you be? Well, the fact that I am here now explaining the theory of reality to people like Stephen Hawking before he passed. all I had to do was read books. I read his books. I read other people's books. I listened to lectures on physics, and these people kept saying, firstly, they kept talking about Isaac Newton, and Stephen Hawking was enamored with Marilyn Monroe. Now, it's not a coincidence that Eddie Redmayne played Marilyn Monroe's love interest in Marilyn and played Stephen Hawking also. That's not a coincidence. The fact that his name is Eddie and his last name is Redmayne. Redmayne is also hair, right? You can have a mane of hair. And so then I would know that, okay, Eddie Redmayne has red hair and his last name is Redmayne. Same thing for almost everything. You have Kim Kardashian. Her dad represented a case where there was a car dash. Now, in that family, everybody's name begins with a K. K, 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 right? That's not a coincidence. That tells you something about their past lives. And then Caitlin begins with the C. Caitlin was also in a car chase, and she ended up getting in an accident and she killed someone. So that would mean the two fathers, but one is a woman now. And that tells you that Robert Kardashian is now a female. When we die, we're reborn as we die. We are energy taking new form. That's why there's so much animosity in the world, because you're meeting your enemies all the time. And you're meeting people that you cared about all the time. And you're meeting people that you judged all the time. Every single person you cross paths with in life is someone from your past lives. You might have been a cockroach in a past life, and you might be paranoid that that person's going to try to hurt you. Everything we experience is based on our cause and effect, action and reaction in past life. So, for instance, my granddaughter, my oldest granddaughter, was my father's mother. And then she became, when she passed, she became a famous singer. And then when she passed, she became someone else. And then she became my granddaughter. So we experience all of these different experiences in life. And we don't know why, but the math is there. Now, there are physicists that say, I was watching a lecture, I'm not going to say his name because I honestly don't remember all the time everyone's names. But he was talking about how energy, it stops and something else takes over. And I'm like, no, that's incorrect. If we are particles and we are atoms and we are all of these things, because what happens is once you name something, that becomes part of reality. And the more people use that name, say atom, you use the name atom, ATOM. Use the word atom all the time. And the second somebody has to ask you what that is, and if you have to pay to go to a university to fully understand how it works, how you can manipulate things, how you can do things, you've already changed your reality and you've aligned a new reality for yourself. So the more meanings we have for logic is simple. What you do comes back to you. It's that simple. Every single thing you say, everything you eat, you will experience when you are eaten. You will be an animal. You will be, if your whole life is about eating steaks, and that's all you do is like steak, 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 you're going to come back per exact measurement of the steak you ate and experience being that much steak. it's ridiculous as it sounds, it's true. So that's the only way physics would make sense to me, is if we all became matter based on our energy. So that would say the universe, there are more than a couple of universes out there. If there are millions of people, and each person, and in physics, they believe there's this person who has this set of numbers, and everything revolves around this set of numbers. That would be like you having a thought, and that thought manifested all of this reality, right? So if you read the Bible, and the Bible says they sent, Lucifer was his favorite and then sent him to earth, and then they called him Satan, then that would mean that Lucifer was Jesus. And so then if they believed in Satan and then they terminated Jesus's life, then Jesus would come back as someone else and then come back as someone else. And if he's a reflection of you, that would mean you would never know it was Jesus. You would never know if you were meeting Jesus, because Jesus would be amongst the lessons he needed to learn and the lessons he needed to teach. He would come back as a drug user, as a promiscuous female, as a lawyer, a doctor. He would come back as everything. He'd come back as a dog, a cat, a cow, a lamb. He'd come back as everything. Just like you, just like me. And if you judged him and then you asked him for something, you would have to experience his judgments to understand. If you called him a drunk and you're like, he's a drunk, he's a loser, Jesus, how could you send this loser to me? And Jesus is like, I'm on a path here myself of understanding who I am, and the only way I can understand who I am is if I am put in these situations and my soul evolves. And then each time I learn something new, then I die and I'm reborn, and then I teach, and then I learn at the same time. So that's the same with anything. With anything. But if you have all of these churches, right? You have all of these buildings built. Now, first of all, an avocado. Let me go to the avocado really quick. If one avocado takes hundreds of gallons of water to create, think about it. And then you have a building built of clay, stone, whatever it's built of, and all of the water used to build a building to worship something that's not asking you to worship them. God's not asking you to worship him. If I'm here, right, I don't want to only focus on one part of my physiological reality. I don't only want to focus on your look. Well, I obviously don't. I don't want to focus on my looks and neglect what's going on inside. I don't want to focus on my looks with things that, let me explain. Like, if you carry a purse made of leather, that purse made of leather was a life. It was a life. Not only was it a life, it was an experienced life, meaning there are people that either loved or didn't love that life, right? While it was an animal. And then you have the people that terminated the life. And then you have the people that cleaned the death. And then you have the people that manipulated the skins and the body parts of that body. Then you have the people that sewed, that created the fabrics, that sewed that life. You have to take into accountability all of the water that was used, all of the cleansers that were used, all of the dyes that were used. What happens to those dyes? What happens to the universe? All of that stuff. Now, they talk about climate change and everything. It's because we have too much. And it's not just having too much. It's creating more life just to kill it. So then what happens with humans? More life is created just for it to die, just for it to be killed. And so I observe what goes on in the news, what's going on in universities, what's going on in my own life. And last night, my granddaughter and I put up my Christmas tree. And that tells me something. That tells me something. And so, firstly, I love Christmas trees. But ornaments, it's the ornaments. Last year, I started sewing ornaments. And I'm looking at my ornaments next to the other ornaments. And mine have no, like, they're circles and flower shapes, and they're made out of felt and yarn. And my granddaughter, she's like, oh, it's so pretty. And it was just very sweet. And then the other ornaments are shaped like gnomes and animals and objects and things. And then there's an ornament my granddaughter made. And as I look at the tree, I understand how hard it is to make those little ornaments shaped like animals and stuff, and how much time it takes. And I guess if they teach you how to do it, it can go by pretty quickly. But learning how to do something takes time, and they use hot glue guns and things like that. Now, all of those things experience reality. So a hot glue gun, what is glue made out of? Then they manipulate the glue with the heat, and then someone's making, if they use horses to make glue, and they use that glue to make a cat. You're changing reality. You're shifting reality. And so whatever that horse suffered, you would start looking within your life to experience things. Like, my cuticle is swollen in the side of and it hurts. So that is me manifesting that, firstly, for flipping the universe off. But more importantly, it wasn't so much the universe, it's scientists and my neighbor. But they're a collective energy of the universe. So that's me paying back for something I did. And these things we experience are what people call cause and effect. So I can do that with numbers. And what happens is, though, every time I share the number, scientists somehow magically they become wiser. And I'm going to tell you how that works. They use this giant computer, and they can calculate what will happen in the world based on what happens with this giant computer. But they were trying to find the person with this set of numbers. And then once they found that person, they were able to better understand how the universe works. But more importantly, they're starting to understand a language they didn't understand before. So the language is already out there. And they can't teach you every single spoken language in school and teach you how the language of the universe works at the same time. So the easiest way to understand the language of the universe is to pay attention to your own life. That's the best advice I have for you. Pay attention to what's going on in your life. Like, I observe my past lives and my children's past lives and my grandchildren's past lives and my pets' past lives in order to understand the math, because we all have birthdays in this life and birthdays in our past life. Our names, when my pets became part of my life. My dog, I happen to know who her children. My dog was a man in her past life. And so I happen to know who her children are. One of them was a friend of my son. And so I happen to know who her children are. So based on the things she does, it explains to me why her children experience what they're experiencing. And it's complex, but at the same time, if I sat here and I told you who I was in my past life, and then I showed you the math, the words, the occurrences, you'd say, wow, that's a coincidence, because you don't know any other way. Nobody has exact coincidences in every occurrence in their life. It's not possible. Nothing is a coincidence. There's no such thing as a coincidence except for the word itself. And then the word itself, if you understood the word itself, it would be coincidence. You'd have the word coin. What is a coin? A coin, they say a coined phrase, right? So then you would look for all of those words to try to figure out what the message was. And every single word shows up in your life again. So I've learned that I want to be a peaceful energy, right? I don't want to be a judgmental, hypocritical, or unkind energy. I don't want to be reborn as anything that makes anyone miserable or feels miserable. I don't want to be that energy. So whatever I'm learning now is because I understand in this life. So I don't want to take it for granted. But at the same time, I want a peaceful reality. And no matter what I'm doing, I want it to be a good experience. So, they say manifest your dream life. My dream life is to be happy. And for the people and animals and whomever I'm around to feel peaceful and comfort and happy, and I want to be genuine and logical, practical, and thoughtful. I want to be who I am now, but I want financial stability. I don't want to be someone that makes others feel envy or pettiness or jealousy or critical. I don't want to be someone that makes people feel those things. And so in this life, the universe knows who I am and knows what I want. So as I work to have those things in my next life, I'm having those things in this life. It's evolving into that kind of life now. And a lot of people don't understand that what you call heaven and hell, it's in your mind, it's in your thoughts, what you think hell might be. To you, hell might be looking like me. You'd be like, I'd rather die than look like that lady. But what if that lady was happy? What if that lady was logical and kind and decent and trustworthy? Mostly, I'm trustworthy in as much as I treat others as others treat me. Meaning, if you flake on me, chances are I'm going to flake on you. Like, it's just going to happen. So, but at the end of the day, I want to be someone that's reliable and trustworthy. And, you know, they say take the higher road, or take, be the one with grace. However, that in itself is a judgment. So I'm just going to be me. And a judgment, people don't understand what a judgment is. A judgment is saying, I'm grateful, I'm not them. That's a judgment. And you know what happens? You come back and you get to be them. And you get to experience your insecurity with wanting to be like them. I don't care who I am. I do not care who I am. I don't care what color I am. I don't care where I'm born. As long as it's a loving, cheerful, kind, decent experience, I don't care. And so I only know what people tell me I should know, right? I was born with a club foot. And so my left foot is different than my right foot. And I used to wear shorts, and people would start, as I got older, saying stuff like, hey, what happened to you? Why is your leg like that? Well, you know, and I never really got into detail. I just said, this is why. But then when I got older, I would try to hide it, but I'd still wear shorts, but I would try to hide it more. And then one day, somebody that I cared about said to me, you know, why do you try to cover it up? I mean, it's obvious you're trying to cover it up. And I never wore shorts again in public. I just didn't. Well, after that period of time. And so I let his opinion of me or my actions create would cause me the most shame. And so because I behaved in ways that I didn't want to, I said things I wish I wouldn't have said. And more importantly, I wish I would have never gotten involved in that relationship. But we learn, and if we really pay attention, that relationship allowed me to learn something I wouldn't have learned. And I also met people that I was supposed to meet to experience being the mother to my children. We are destined to experience the things we're going to experience. But it's who you experience them with. And so my children experienced their realities that they were going to experience anyway with me, which tells me that they instinctively are kind, loving, protective energies. And then I got to be their mother, but because of in my past life, I was a lot of different people. But in my past, I made some people feel insecure. And it happened again in this life. And, but I wasn't intentionally trying to do that until they were unconscious. But the reality is, unless you say something, sometimes people won't stop. It doesn't matter how nice you are. I've learned that. There was one person, and it didn't matter how kind I was to that person, because they know they're not trustworthy. They just assume everyone else is not trustworthy, which then I had to think, why would that person think that of me? And it goes back to past life. She was born not to trust me. And so these are things I learned. And then it's why. And then there's so many reasons why. But there's a lot. So when you know, pie, right? And then you, with an E, and my daughter's initials are MC. You would look at the E and the equal. The equal has two lines, right? 1, 2. So then you would look at equals 2. And then you would wonder what E means. What does E mean in real life? So for me, E meant I had a boyfriend named Edward, and I had a boyfriend named Eddie. And both of them, I got tattoos on my back. And one of them I covered up with a Black Panther, and the other one I covered up with a butterfly. So a butterfly, each one has a different experiences a different reality, but it told me a story. A butterfly begins, in a cocoon. And these are I'm not going to go into detail about words right now because people can get very offended if they don't understand. And so then I have this cat named Jake, who's a Maine Coon cat. And anyway, the Black Panther is the name of an organization. It is also the name of a movie. But more importantly, man has named it as a cat, which is also a jaguar, which is also a car. So all of these things tell you why. And so just like you have your physiology and things going on in your system, we are the physiology of what's going on in the universe. Like when you're in your car, you're actually changing the energy in the universe. And then your intentional, just driving itself is changing your physiological reality. It's changing what your kids are doing, what your spouse is doing. Every single thing in your life, it's changing. And so people don't seem to want to take accountability for their energy. If you write a song, like my dog was a famous singer, and she wrote a song about, and it mentioned dogs, and then she became a dog. And but she became my dog, which tells me that she was my family in lifetimes ago, and that her mother was my family. And because I'm her, see, her human mom is named Catherine, but she was a man, but now she's a female, and she's I call her my family, and she's my baby. But at the same time, how she passed tells a lot about how she lives now. And say, sweet girl, say little sweet dukes. But her name is Daisy. And her daughter, her first song was called Daisy. And so her daughter has these, she said she'll like hear a bag rustling or something, and she gets anxious. And that's because my pup likes to go through my bags. She likes to go through my bags. She likes to go see what's in there. So that's cause and effect. You know, Einstein is talking about how you can go into another room, but you can go into what's called intention. Intention is something over here that already occurred. It already happened. It's the past. But it's also the present, which creates the future. So it's why you do what you do. Why is all of this stuff happening to you? People will ask me, why is this happening to me? And I'll be, well, I could tell you some of what's going on based on what I see now. Well, I see that you care more about the appearance than you do the reality. And to somebody, they might not understand what that means. They might go, I don't know what that means. And I'm like, well, it's telling yourself a lie until it's believable to strangers. I mean, if you tell yourself that being pretty makes you feel special, that's temporary, right? When you fall in love, what if you fall in love, but you fall in love with someone that only wants you to be superficial? But then you want them to love you for you, but they can't love you for you because you didn't meet them that way. Then you're creating the intention. So that's why we have relationships that end and don't succeed. What is your intention? When you wake up, what do you want to do? For me, when I first wake up, I want to be peaceful. I don't want to have to do a bunch of chores like when I first wake up. I just want to like lay there for a minute. Don't have to do everything that I know I need to get done for the day. Because I don't want to waste those moments where I can just be me. I don't want to waste my time trying to be what everybody else wants me to be. And I want to be what I want to be. But I'm still trying to figure out how I want to live. Do I want to live a pretend life, Or do I want to live a life that I feel comfortable with? Like, I'm like, oh, I'm okay with that, and I'm okay with that, and I'm okay. Like, right now, my life, also during COVID, everybody's life is different. But for me, like my cat wanting me to pet him all the time, I resent that. I don't like petting him all the time. I'm not going to lie. But that's because he's someone related to my ex. And he told my ex that it was either my ex's father or his grandfather. And so, in knowing that, I mean, I adore this cat. Don't get me wrong. I cherish my furry family, but he always wants me to pay attention to him. So, and that means he needs that attention, but at the same time, I don't want to. And so that tells me that when he was related to me, he was either too busy working, talk to me, or he could have been my father. I haven't done all of the math. He could have been one of my parents that was just like, I don't have time for you. I'm sorry. So I don't know what it is. I haven't researched it, but there's a logical explanation. So I don't like, I don't know. I don't go into detail because there's not, everything is complex, and I really try to enjoy my life as it is. Last year, my son passed away. And so I'm still dealing with that, right? And because I know who my son was in his past lives, some of them, I know his soul. And because I know his soul, I know that things will be as they're meant to be. And he was Albert Einstein. And that's why we became family. But Albert Einstein had judged me when I was Marilyn Monroe. And so I would experience him judging me, like, through himself. He experienced what it felt like to be attractive, but also to grow up with someone who was preoccupied with a relationship and then with theoretical physics. So he learned what it was like to be from Marilyn Monroe, and he learned what it was like to be a child of a scientific thinker. And it wasn't super easy for him to experience himself, and from a different perspective. Just like me, I played these different movie parts, and those movie parts became my reality in this life. Like my last movie, I was lost on an island, and my husband was a lawyer, but he married somebody else. And in this life, and then my children in the movie were living with the lawyer and his other wife. But since the wife was still alive, he was illegally married, even though the judge told him it was okay. Now, in this life, my ex is a lawyer who's married to his second cousin. Albert Einstein was married to his cousin. So if I judged my ex for being married to his cousin, then I was judging my child for having been married to his cousin. And that's why they say, judge not lest you be judged. Everything you judge in others, your children have experienced, their soul has experienced. So then you're judging your children without knowing it, and they pay the price of your judgment. And then if you teach them to judge, then that's where their insecurities and such come from. So I'm not a super judgmental person. And but I can be if someone else is judgmental. Now, what happened was in my past life, I worried about my weight and my appearance. In this life, I would experience all of those things through my children. And now I don't worry about my appearance as much as I did. And my weight is different than it was when I was growing up. However, I worry about my health more than my weight. And it can be very complex in that process of thinking. And so I'm still learning. And then what happens when you're learning, you research the foods you're eating and where they were made, how it impacts the environment, who, like avocados. Do you throw away avocados? I have. However, when you research avocados and find out how much water they use, there's a famous singer who has one of the biggest avocado farms in California. And he's always talking about conserve water. And then he sells his avocados to Chipotle. And he's a vegetarian. And he performs on stage using, do you know how much light uses water? And then people are eating, from the concessions. And so he's contributing to mass amounts of waste. But he's advocating for people to conserve water. Why? So he can use it and he can profit from it. Even if he donated most of the money he made, if the second he writes it off on his taxes, or if someone works on his farm and he doesn't pay them, say he spends $500,000 on water every 6 months or whatever, a year, to produce $1 million for avocados in sales. I have no idea the numbers. That farmer, the people that are doing the labor, if they don't make as much as the water bill costs, then his next life, he's not going to be able to afford the water, or he's going to not have enough water, or he will just be grateful, or he's definitely going to need omegas. When you have too much of something and you're not paying attention to the things you say, you end up with less. I already know there's the chance I might have nothing my next life. And my happiness will come from having whatever I have. but as long as I'm happy. I don't ask for, like, I shop at Goodwill. And the only thing I buy new are my glasses or my shoes. But that wasn't the case before. Before I bought my, when my ex stopped supporting me, I started buying my shoes. Like, I just wore flip-flops and I wore them all the time. And now I can't even wear them. My feet hurt when I wear flip-flops. It has to have some padding. And that goes back to Marilyn talking about walking around with no shoes on the island. And her feet got flat and her foot grew. And she was talking about she was trying on her left shoe, and she was talking about how her shoe, she thought her foot was smaller. And now my left foot is about that much smaller than my right foot. And because it was in a cast, I had like a lot of different casts. Like, as my feet grew, I would get a different cast after I had surgery. And I had surgery on my left foot the first 7 years of my life. And Marilyn was in the movie called The 7-Year Itch. And she was cast. That was the last movie she was cast in. And I met my ex on an island. And he's a lawyer from a political family. And I dated his brother first. And and they live in a compound. So Marilyn was rumored to have affairs with the Kennedy brothers, who live in a compound off the island of Hyannisport. And then you would look at the word Hyannis, and then you'd look at the word hyenas and laughing hyenas. And people used to laugh at Marilyn Monroe's movies. My ex's girlfriend wrote me, and when I lived in Corona, she wrote me on Christmas Day. And she said, well, before that, she said, we laugh at you. And it was, or maybe it was after, I don't remember. But I was called a virus when I lived in Corona. So that was a prophecy. That was something she was telling me. And so what happens is, when I remember the things people say to me and why they say them and when they said them, someone else at Christmas time told me I was old and ugly and mean. And so I'm like, what did Marilyn do at Christmas time? But more importantly, what happened at Christmas time? And the birth of Jesus was Christmas time. So then I have to think, well, what would happen to Jesus? What was Jesus like? What are all of these things, right? I had to have said someone was old and ugly. And quite honestly, everything I say to God comes back. Someone else says to me. So if you ask God to forgive someone their sin, then you have to pay for that sin. And so if you're out there praying for everyone's children, and you're begging God and you're asking God, why aren't you fixing this? Why aren't you doing it? And then all of a sudden, one of your children is taken away. And God said, because I would have to take your child in order to protect their child, and maybe their child was going to hurt your child's just with their thoughts. And you never know. And I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that's what keep your enemies close implies. Because what happens is maybe their child is going to be your grandchild. And maybe their child was your mother or father. And maybe you didn't have a great relationship with your mother or father. And so you choose your path. And I obviously did not make the most logical choices. And that's why I'm learning what logic is. But I know that my son now has a better reality than he had before. And so all I can do is try to learn to be better, because I'm not sitting here wondering if where we go after we die. I'm just trying to figure out the equation of why we go where we go when we die. Because we're reborn. As you die, you're reborn. So if I die today, someone could do the math and figure out who was born today and all the experiences they're going to have, and they would check their social security number, where they were born, what time they were born, what was going on in the world when they were born. That's what I have to do. I literally have to check all these equations. Every movie tells me part of a story. Good Will Hunting is about a guy who's a great mathematician. I go Goodwill thrifting, which some people could call it hunting, because I buy a lot of used leather items which someone had taken the life of, which tells me that I was a hunter and that I will once again be some kind of hunter. It could be my last name. And I used to work at a restaurant called The Hungry Hunter, and I was the cashier. And my friend Leslie Harris was the hostess. So that tells me part of the language. My last name through marriage is Harris, but I also knew another Leslie Harris when I was growing up, and we were on drill team together. And so drill and hunter, that tells me that I was a soldier, or that I started a war, or I stopped a war. And so all of these things tell me who I was past life. So I'm like, what president was, okay, if I'm the cashier, that would mean I'm in charge of finances between the servers and the customers, which tells me I was a president. And then I would go, which president? Okay, and these things start telling you things. Then I would research who owns the Hungry Hunter restaurant, who started the Hungry Hunter restaurant. Because when we used to go to the Hungry Hunter restaurant, I would order this big the salad was my favorite part. And so you start paying attention to all of these different things about yourself, and then your birth dates and I was also Isaac Newton. And so I was Isaac Newton, and then I was my name, Isaac Newton, and Isaac, which I have extra tear ducts in each eye. And I also was born with cataracts. And they don't impact my vision. So I've been told. So I was born with internal vision. Like I experience things before they happen. If someone's getting ready to do something really, really awful in the name of God or something somewhere, I start talking like them. It's as if they're part of my past, or they're using my energy to, and I'm not God, but they're using my energy from something that I taught them in past lives or something. And because I was Isaac Newton and I created this math, if they use this math to make a bomb or a weapon, I'm partially responsible for the energy that allows that. So then I'll feel shifts and I will feel changes. But since it was so long ago, it gets less and less as time goes by. Because there are other people doing, inventing things more around what now they're taking it to a completely different. Elon Musk, when he comes back, will experience whatever turmoil he creates for space and energy. He'll experience. His physiological experience won't be what he might hope it would be. And Donald Trump was Nikola Tesla. So as I watch what's happening with Donald Trump in the world, he just created his own social media platform. So whatever Elon Musk does in space, Donald Trump will do on Earth. So if Elon Musk is upsetting the natural order with ego, and there's no reason to go to space. There's absolutely no reason to go to space. Why would you want to upset the most helpful, positive energy and then put humans there? We are the energy that is killing all other energy. So if humans were inside of your body, they'd be trying to find a way to get out of your body, right? Which would mean we were a disease. We were something awful. Would you want millions of people with their different energies going on in your body? I wouldn't. So what happens is if we're doing this, we are creating the ending of humans. So there won't be a reality as a human. Can you imagine what would be worse than a human? If we're going to keep going until we're all just toxic and we just don't freaking care, we're going to be some awful matter. Like, I wouldn't want to be around a bunch of, could you imagine if everyone's a billionaire, who's doing all the labor? Who's doing all the labor? Everybody's going to be at a computer learning how to manipulate the guy next to him, and then they're going to be trying to figure out how to get imaginary money. What happens when nobody knows how to do anything? Who's gonna sit in the workshops and work on all the computers and stuff? Who's gonna even put them together? Then everybody's just gonna be sitting there by themselves, trying to figure out how to get out of what they got themselves into. It's pointless. It's like, appreciate what you do have. I mean, I like linen sheets. And so I researched, and I was really amazed at the process of creating linen sheets. And then I am thinking, okay, if I spend this much on linen sheets, how many hours did it take someone because they fertilize and water them? They're very specific as to what they need to do. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot of work. So I don't take my linen sheets for granted. I'm like, I love my linen sheets. But I love my flannel sheets and my cotton sheets. But for me, I like linen is I don't know what my connection personally is to linen, but someone told me once that she was luminous because she took flaxseed pills. But she wasn't luminous on the inside. She was actually not a good person as far as I'm concerned. And then I realized she was a reflection of my past self, but also not of my past self. But I had to have judged. And then flaxes, they make linen. And so maybe that's why I feel so...
Molly Calvo or Molly and Maxine.